Stacey. Welcome to the kitchen of my old Kentucky home. Today, we're going to be cooking up one of my favorite comfort foods, chicken and dumplings. And so to help lighten things up, Jessica is going to be making a refreshing cocktail, the Whiskey Smash. Let's get cooking. For our chicken and dumplings, we're going to need the following ingredients: 1 whole chicken, some fresh cracked pepper, 2 diced carrots, and for our dumplings, we'll need 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk, 1 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. So the first thing we've done for our chicken and dumplings is to put an entire chicken in a stew pot covered with water and have put it on to boil. We're just going to boil that for an hour, hour and a half, or until it's tender. So while that cooks, we're going to make the dumplings. Now dumplings are your basic biscuit recipe really, only you roll them out, or we're going to boil them instead of baking them. So the ingredients we have: the flour, we're just using a basic all-purpose flour, buttermilk, and you can substitute water for this or regular milk as well, just need a liquid. Salt, and then a little baking soda to get these to rise just a little bit. So we're going to mix this with a pastry blender. And if you don't have a pastry blender, you can always use 2 back sides of a fork. And again, this is just basic biscuit dough. We're going to roll this out, knead it just a little bit, and then cut it up into, I've seen people do strips or squares. We're just going to do whatever suits us here in a minute. And as I do this, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the history of chicken and dumplings. Of course, no one really knows for certain what the actual origin story is on the actual recipe, but it's pretty synonymous with Southern cooking in the South. And of course, if you're a Kentuckian, all your grandmothers probably and your aunts had great recipes. I'm actually doing a combo recipe of what my grandmothers would have made, and then a particular recipe of my husband's grandmother. We called her Gigi. She was Laverne Stingle, and this is her mother's, I guess, Grandma Stingle's recipe. Also, I thought of note, again, they don't know the exact origin story, but through some research, some people attribute a Kentucky cook to inspiring chicken and dumplings because a Mrs. Bryan in around the 1830s wrote a cookbook called The Kentucky Housewife that became very famous, and she has a couple of dumpling recipes in her cookbook, and some people think that that inspired people to make good use of the cooking chickens. And this would have been a delicacy at the time. And of course, it really soared in popularity, chicken and dumplings did, they think, during the Great Depression, when it was a way to stretch a chicken in simple biscuit dough to make a really satisfying and, as I said, comfort food kind of a meal. Okay, so this is mixed up pretty well. I'm gonna take this out of the pastry blender. I'm gonna throw off my ring. And we're just gonna turn these out onto, you can use a pastry board. My countertops are kind of marble-ish Corian, so kind of they make a perfect setting for rolling out dumplings. But I'm gonna go on and knead it inside this bowl. Don't need to do it too much because they don't need to rise as high as they would if they were biscuits baking in an oven. But they should plump up just really nicely once we get them in this chicken broth. All right, I think that's good enough. Take a little flour and put it there. Some room. Also to our recipe, we're going to be adding some carrots. That's entirely optional. I just like it for a little color. Some people add celery and onions. We're going to also be garnishing ours with parsley, which will help with the color a little bit too. So you're just going to roll this out to, pretty much like a pie crust consistency. Okay, we've got our dough rolled out nice and thin, and we're just gonna cut some strips. I use a pizza wheel, you can just use a knife if you want to. And you can really do any shape, size that you want. Just gonna go for a square look, and you'll notice, you know, this one's gonna be small, but it'll cook down into that broth and won't even know it. So we're just gonna put these on a plate and add them to our broth. It's still cooking on the stove. We've removed the chicken, and we're gonna shred that while these dumplings cook down and make our broth really soupy. Let's go. Okay, we're just gonna add these dumplings, one or a couple at a time, gently into our boiling chicken stock. And what's gonna happen is these are gonna cook down, and some of the flour in these dumplings are going to thicken this broth into a soup consistency. And then we'll add back our chicken. Also, while these are cooking, we're going to add our carrots. So we have our dumplings cooking down in our chicken stock and our carrots getting tender. And this is cooled enough now that I can handle it. If you are trying to rush this recipe, you can also use forks to get in there and shred this chicken, but this is nice and cool, so I think this is kind of the fun part. Just dig in there and break all this chicken up. And you can also, a cheater recipe for this, sometimes I like to do, is after we've had a roast chicken, whether that I've roasted it myself or I've picked one up from the grocery, you know, those rotisserie ones you get. We pick all the meat off that, you know, have it for a dinner, and then with a little that's left over, I will boil down the chicken carcass, and so get my chicken stock off that, and then a lot of times, you know, there'll be a little remaining chicken on that, and then just do about a half a recipe of dumplings and cook it down that way. So that's kind of a cheater version, a little quicker, and a great way to salvage that leftover rotisserie chicken. So once I get all this chicken shredded, and as the broth begins to thicken, I'm gonna add this. It's gonna take a little bit. So as we do this, we're gonna go find out what Jessica is up to. I can't wait to taste a whiskey smash.
Today we're gonna make a classic Southern style of cocktail called a whiskey smash. Now you can use these with kind of any seasonal fruit, and usually sugar or some kind of sweetener, a splash of water or seltzer water, and that's about it. So today we're gonna use Evan Williams single barrel, honey, lemon, rosemary, and just a little bit of hot water. So the first thing we're gonna do is take a half lemon that I've cut up into kind of smaller pieces to make it a little easier to muddle. We're gonna put that in our cocktail shaker. With rosemary, I just pulled the leaves off of one stem. And then we're also gonna do an ounce of honey. I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it, and depending if you like your cocktails a little sweeter or a little less sweet, you could do more or less. And then I've got 1 ounce of hot water, and I'm gonna muddle this all together to get the fruit really nice and the juice out, and kind of squeeze the rinds too, so you get those essential oils in there. And I want to infuse the flavor of that rosemary nicely in here too. All right, so we got that nicely combined, and I'm going to add ice to the cocktail shaker. And we're gonna do 3 ounces of bourbon. And just give it a good shake. And we're gonna strain this over crushed ice. So crushed or shaved ice is the best option for a smash. And I'm gonna garnish it with a sprig of rosemary. Get that down in there. And I'm gonna just peel off a little bit of the lemon peel. Try not to get any of the pith in there, the white part. And give that a good squeeze to get those oils out over the drink. And put that garnish in there too. And there you have it, whiskey smash. So Stacey, I'm excited to try your version of chicken and dumplings and see how it stands up to my grandma's recipe.
Well, I hope you will like it. I think it's a good batch, and we'll certainly test it. We've got some friends coming over to help us eat this comfort food, and I think that this is going to pair really well with it. You're right, it is refreshing, and I like the acidity in it.
You know, I was struggling a little bit with what to pair with chicken and dumplings, but the smash is really great because you can kind of tailor it to what it is that you're going with, and I thought the herbal element with the sour would be a really nice complement.
And weren't you saying a smash is a julep?
Yeah, so it's basically already a Kentucky tradition.
All right, so speaking of Kentucky traditions, follow us at culinarylouisville.com for more great recipes like chicken and dumplings and a whiskey smash.
And we'll see you next time on Bourbon
And biscuits.
Cheers.
Cheers.